Hello, my name is Michael Lambert, and today I want to talk a little bit about the current state of affairs in British politics, and I also want to talk a little bit about our Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. Now, we seem to be rather unlucky. As I've said before, I think that we've had three of possibly the worst Prime Ministers ever in a row. Starting with Boris Johnson, who probably did more damage to this country than anybody else in history, a guy who was just dishonest, incompetent and totally self-obsessed and did so much damage, made us a worldwide laughingstock. He was followed by Liz Truss, who a woman with all the personality and charisma of a wet biscuit. And now we've got Sunak. We've got little Charlie Chaplin running the show, and he really has not got a clue. This is a man who hasn't got very much personality. He's no charm whatsoever. He's very weak. He's petulant. He's tetchy. He's bad-tempered. He's spoilt. He has absolutely no idea how ordinary people live, no understanding of struggling financially. This is a guy who's never had to ask the price of anything, not for years and years and years at any rate. And I think we're extremely, extremely unlucky to have such a person when the the country is in such a mess. But he does have two outstanding bad features. The first is that he has absolutely zero political nous. He has just no idea how to do politics. He just doesn't understand it. And so he makes these ridiculous, stupid mistakes, like, for example, snubbing the Prime Minister of Greece just because he'd been asked a question on Laura Kuenssberg's television programme about the Elgin Marbles. And in so doing, he completely alienated the entire Greek population and probably half of Europe as well, and showed himself to be a petulant little twit. And the other aspect, which I think should disqualify him in the way it should have disqualified Johnson, is the fact that he. Following Johnson's example, he's dishonest. He's lying all the time, particularly in saying that things are what they're not or they're not what they are. Just talking absolute rubbish, and I'll give you a few examples in a moment. But I suppose his dishonesty has really been most recently shown in the thing with the WhatsApp messages. A few months ago, when he discovered that he was going to have to hand over his WhatsApp messages, and so would Johnson, he went to court. It cost £200,000, apparently. It was announced yesterday. He spent £200,000 of our money, your money, my money, taxpayers' money, £200,000 in order to try and avoid having to hand over his WhatsApp messages. Well, as we all know, he lost the case. And so what did he do then? He said he couldn't hand them over because he lost them. He had changed his phone. He's the only person in the country where this has happened to, but he's changed his phone, and as a result of changing his phone, the message they didn't transfer over. Somehow they just disappeared, like Johnson. So I mean, Johnson handed over all his messages except for the crucial 6 months, and obviously they're incriminating. Obviously they're both dishonest, and obviously they've got stuff to hide. And he's forever getting up in Parliament, time and time again, saying things that are not true, particularly about his pledges. Now, for anybody to make pledges which they know, unless they know they're going to be able to keep them, or they've got a pretty good chance, it's just stupid. It's just, again, political naivety. I mean, why make 5 pledges when there's a fair chance that he wouldn't be able to keep them? Sounded good at the time, of course. And the only one he's managed to keep is the one on inflation, which had nothing to do with him, because everybody knew when inflation was 10% or more, that was all everybody else's fault. That was Putin, that was COVID, that was rain in Spain, that was who knows what, beyond his control. Now it's come down. It's all thanks to his skillful management of the economy that inflation has come down. Still higher than the EU, much higher than America, but nonetheless it's come down. And with his other pledges, he said, for example, I think he said, let me just check. He said that in answer to a question posed by the Spectator. He said, we've delivered more tax cuts in one fiscal event than at any point since the 1980s. So you're supposed to think, oh, crikey, bring your taxes down, that's great. We're paying higher taxes now, more in tax than we have at any time since the 1950s, 70 years ago. And yet he's trying to make out he's a tax cutter. He talks about paying down debt. I mean, just look at the chart. We're not paying down debt. Debt is now, thanks to the 13 years of Tory rule, is now almost 100% of GDP. And he talks about the economy growing. That's one of his boasts. You know, he gets up in Parliament. You see him every week in PMQs. He'll get up and he'll list off one thing. Oh, more money in this, more money in that, more doctors, more nurses, more policemen, da-da-da-da-da-da. Just a load of lies. And so, as I say, he says that the economy is growing. You can see it's not growing. It's at best flatlining. And he said, for example, he said that rough sleeping was down 35%. It's actually up 18%. And worst of all, he said that hundreds of thousands fewer children are in poverty thanks to his government. Well, according to UNICEF, child poverty has increased by 20% in the last few years in this country. We now have 4.2 million children. And if you look at this chart, we are doing the worst of all major advanced countries. The worst. And yet he's saying child poverty is doing better. We're supposed to believe that? It's just chaos. It's just utter nonsense. Simon Case, you know, the poor fellow who's ill, he's just ill. Unfortunately, his illness coincided with the COVID inquiry. He said, and he should know what he's talking about. It's an experience. He said, I'm quoting verbatim, "I've never seen a bunch of people less well equipped to run a country." And so it is. And you only have to, when you hear him talking about how well we're doing, how fantastic everything is, how brilliantly he's doing, and how we're better than this and better than that, and it'd be worse under Labour, it'd be worse in other countries. And you just look around and you see the trouble, you see how stressed people are in, you see how people are in debt. You look at the NHS, you see now ambulances are starting to queue up again, so that if you have a heart attack you have to wait hours for an ambulance to come. You can see, I mean, getting a doctor's appointment almost impossible. Dentists, nobody remembers what a dentist is. What do they do? Dentists, nobody knows. You look at the courts, you look at the prisons, you look at the care sector, look at everywhere, welfare, everything is collapsing. Yeah, we're really in big trouble. And things are going to get a lot worse. We're going to have food shortages next year. Crime is on the uprise. Although tell you, crime's down, never been lower. Violent crime, we're reading about it all the time. Muggings and burglaries. And mental health is bound. I mean, there's so many people being unable to pay their bills, so many people losing their houses, losing their jobs, and so it's going to be a huge mental health crisis, which has already started, and we're already hearing about young men, particularly being having trouble with mental issues. But none of this matters. All that matters, all that government spends all their time debating, all they're concerned about, all the papers are writing about, all these civil servants are working on, is stopping the boats. That's the one thing that's got to do. And he's staked his reputation on it. He's absolutely obsessed with stopping the boats and sending people to Rwanda. When you think of the madness of this scheme, I mean, nobody's ever going to go to Rwanda. We all know that. Labour, the moment they get in next year or whenever, or January next, the year after next, they're going to cancel it all anyway. But we spent £400 million on this. This is Braverman's obsession. I mean, he's frightened of everybody, so he's had to just go along with it. I mean, can you imagine somebody coming from, say, Eritrea, or coming from, I don't know, Iran, or from Afghanistan? Can you imagine how difficult it is to actually get to the UK, or to get to Calais, and then getting in one of those overcrowded rubber dings with 50 other people and going across there because you want to get to England because you've got relatives there, or because you speak English, or because you've got offer of work there, or whatever? And you're going to be put off by the fact that 1 in 200, at the absolute maximum, 1 in 200 of the people that cross on the Channel, that's 200 out of 40,000, 1 in 200 might be sent to Rwanda. I mean, he's not a deterrent. I've seen Tory MPs being interviewed last week saying, you know, why are we so keen to do this, to proceed with this Rwanda thing, and they all say, well, it's because it's a deterrent. And when asked, well, how do you know it's a deterrent? Well, we don't know, really. We're going to try it. £400 million with our children starving, people sleeping rough. He's not a good way to spend money. It's utterly stupid. And not only that, of course, what we're going to do, we're going to send over 200 of our people who've crossed the Channel, people who are probably very desperate and probably very, very keen to work and pay taxes and all the rest of it once they get here. We're going to swap them for Rwandans who are going to come here. Rwandans, vulnerable refugees, they're going to come here to replace them. So we're not going to actually reduce the number of people who we don't want here. We're just going to change Iranians and Afghans and whatever for Rwandans. It's completely mad, and we're paying £400 million for that. And do you know, in the last few years, 14 people from Rwanda have been granted political asylum in the UK because they didn't feel safe in Rwanda. 14. And we had last week, didn't we, the tragedy of the guy committing suicide on the Bibby Stockholm. That's the first of, no doubt, going to be many more of those, because people are desperate people get to this country, and because there are no legal routes, they get to this country by crossing the Channel, and then they're just put in prison in effect, and they're put in those dreadful conditions where they're overcrowded, and obviously the stress is too much. But this is Rishi Sunak's absolute priority, stopping the boats. Nothing else matters at all. Now, one or two other things I'd like to mention that I noticed happened last week. But before I do that, can I just remind you that I do have some of these wonderful hats to sell. Perfect Christmas present, absolutely brilliant. These hats will be worth a fortune. In 100 years' time, when the benefits of Brexit are just beginning to show themselves, these hats will be worth a fortune. I also have just a few of my little books left. So if you're interested in either, perfect Christmas present. So have a look at my website, ml44.com. So one or two other things that caught my eye last week. Scott Benton, he's the latest Tory MP to be chucked out, following Peter Bone and Bob Stewart and Rob Robson and Matt Hancock. Oh, a whole load of them that have been expelled from the party. He was something to do with, I think, he was being paid by the gambling industry, and I think he was trying to lobby for them in Parliament. Michael Gove, we've apparently spent £320,000 on a contract for a limousine for him for 3 years, which is very, very nice. It's over £100,000 a year, £2,000 a week for a nice car for him to drive around in or be driven around in. According to the NHS, there have been 28,000 excess deaths this year in the first 6 months. Presumably because there are people waiting to get operations or waiting for ambulances, who knows what, but 28,000, an awful lot of people to die unnecessarily. And something else that's caught my eye was a lady called Harriet Baldwin. She's the MP for West Bromwich. Now, she's a lovely lady, a really kind, nice lady, like all Tory MPs, really nice. And She very, very kindly gave £50 to her local hospice. Awfully generous, really. And then she tried to claim it back on her expenses. But I'm going to say again, as I've said so many times before, this is all as a result of all this mess we're in. Is not only incompetent politicians, but it's all a result of Brexit having weakened our economy so much. I mean, we are really struggling. And while Starmer might well tell us it's worse everywhere else and so on, it most certainly isn't. And no one wants to talk about Brexit. Sunak doesn't. Starmer doesn't. Even Cameron was saying last week, you're just going to get on. No, talk about it. Starmer said that our struggling economy is not being caused by Brexit alone. So at least he accepts that some of it is caused by Brexit. He also said that the Tories have failed to realise the opportunities of Brexit. So I mean, let's hope that when he becomes Prime Minister shortly, that he will be able to realise the opportunities of Brexit. But all in all, everything's in a terrible, terrible mess, and we're being led by Charlie Chaplin, who hasn't got a clue what he's doing, and heaven help us. We'll see what happens after Christmas. I mean, his Rwanda safety bill will be coming back. That's no doubt going to lead to a lot more fireworks and a lot more little mafia men like Mark Francois trying to make trouble. And well, we have to continue to be patient, I suppose. So anyway, if you watched this far, thank you very much indeed, and until next week, bye for now.